Today is going to be a little bit patchy, a little bit bitty, because every time Apple update iWork, they put in a couple of new features, they improve performance, and you often don't get a chance to see the new features. And then before you know it, the next versions come out. And then before you know it, you're 4 years down the line, and there's all these things that the device can do and that the applications can do, and you just haven't got time. So that's what today's about. I'm going to show you the new features in Pages, in Numbers, in Keynote. In some instances, I'm going to show you both on the Mac and the iPad, because some of the new features are only applicable to the iPad and some are only applicable to the Mac. So we're going to be jumping around a bit, but I hope it's worthwhile for you, and we'll get going. So let's start off with Pages. In the first instance, there are a whole bunch of new templates. So if you don't have any design chops, but you want to make very attractive looking documents, while there were quite a few to start off with, there are a lot more now. And I'm glad you joined us, Michael, because there's some really nice newsletter templates available. So if you have a look at the basic templates, you've just got your blank with blank back. Note taking, this is a nice little outliner that I use all the time when I'm preparing for these sessions. If you look at reports, these guys have always been there. Here's some new ones. These guys are all new. So I encourage you, if you are using reports and you don't want to start from scratch, go through some of these and have a look. We've got the books that we used for EPUBs, or if we're creating books that we want to print out. Those of you who did the EPUB session with us will remember some of these. I used this template to do our book. We've got letters. We've got all sorts of predefined and pre-designed letters with placeholders for your addresses and your salutations and your footers and headers and so on. More curricula vitae than you can shake a stick at. So if you're looking for a new job, you want to make yourself look pretty impressive, these guys are all here. Flyers and posters, again, a lot more new templates. Newsletters, I think this is a brand new one. So if you've got newsletters that you want to create, you've got all your placeholders in place. All you have to do is replace the content with your own stuff, and then you're good to go. And of course, you can customize it as well. Stationery, you've got envelopes, photo cards, birthday cards, business cards, certificates, trifold brochures. If you want to make your own trifold brochures, but you don't know how, just fill them in, print them out, you're good to go. So those are the templates. I'll show you a few, but now here are some of the actual new features. Let's create a new document, and I'll open up, let's say, this report. Now, one of the things that you can add now is a web video. While you've always been able to insert a traditional video, you can now insert a web video. So if I choose Insert Web Video, it asks me for the URL, and it supports YouTube and Vimeo. So all you really need is the address of the shared address of the video. You can copy and paste it or drag and drop it in here. It goes and checks to see whether the video is valid. If I click Insert, I now have a video that isn't embedded in the document. It's taking up no more space, but when I send it to somebody, when I share it to somebody, they click on it. And you just embedded a video inside your document. We have all the features that you'd expect to have. You'd be able to change the settings. So the quality by default, it's making it 360p, but we could go up and have it play back in 1080p. So everything that's inside the YouTube functionality is available inside this document. And the other thing that I like as well, of course, which supports people who have oral disabilities or people who can't hear, you click on closed captions. Let's do this. A lot of people think that a PDF is an EPUB. And a PDF is the furthest thing that you could possibly get from an EPUB. It's a digital document. So all of that text that's coming up in the closed captioning, I didn't do a jot of work. So if I want to make it a little bit easier for people to follow what I'm doing, whether they have disabilities or not, or if they just want to watch my video in absolute silence and just read what I'm doing, all of the closed captioning gets done automatically. So that's a really, really cool feature, the web video. We can also add captions and titles to videos, to shapes and other objects. Whereas before, if I wanted to caption this, I'd have to take a text box, insert a text box, align it, place it in the appropriate place, make sure that the text strap wasn't done, the text strap wasn't moving stuff around. All I have to do is select the object. If I go to web video, I can make a title. I can choose whether the title appears at the top or the bottom. Let's put it on the top. And I can also add a caption. So I can just say this is a DigiCape broadcast. Getting started with EPUBs. And then that'll move with the document. If I decide to move this around my document, you can see my caption will stay and move with my document wherever I move it inside that document. So again, just nice little touches that make my life a little bit easier. Another feature that I like, if you're particularly styling a document, is they've added drop caps. So if I open up this document and go to the first page, I want to take the R from Richard Smith and make it a drop cap. Now, again, historically, I might have had to take a text box, put the letter R in there, shunt this around. I can select it and move it out the way, make it bigger, place it there, have text strap going. But now all I have to do is select the first letter in my paragraph, if I just want the first letter. And down at the bottom here, we have a new feature called drop cap. So if I click on drop cap, it makes it a drop cap. But there's more, because there are at least 6 predefined drop caps. So if I click over here, I've got that style, I've got that style, I've got that style, I've got that style and that style. And you note that some of them are dropping the first line of text 1 line below. So they each have their own flavor. But once I've done that, I can also do all sorts of other things. So, sorry, switched that off by mistake. I can customize it even further. So I've taken this guy, I've chosen this particular style, but now I can say, you know, I want the drop cap to be 5 lines. And now it increases the number of lines that my drop cap is going to go over without any additional work for me. Let's make it a little bit bigger, because you note now that my text is wrapping right around the letter R. So if I go over here and say, you know, I actually want my text wrap to be a box rather than wrapping around the letters, I can do that. If I want to now customize this so that I've raised or lowered the lines so that now the first line is pushed down. So again, I've got quite a lot of control over what happens over here. I can push this out to the left of my text box. I can give it a background shape. Once it has a background shape, I can affect the corner radius. So I can make it a circle, I can make it a square, I can make it a rectangle with rounded corners. I can scale the character inside the box and outside the box. And I can also change the color of that box over here. So I've got a lot of control of my drop caps. And this is in, by the way, most of the tools I'm showing here are repeated all the way through Numbers, Pages, and Keynote. So if you know how to do it in Pages, you know how to do it in Numbers, you know how to do it in Keynote. We've always had shapes inside Pages, Keynote, and Numbers, but they've added a whole heap more. So if you need any primitives that you need to insert into your documents, and then you want to edit them or do something to them. So for example, I can select this, what's this, a duo polyhexy something. Let's make this a little bit bigger, and we'll let the text wrap around it. Okay, so now I've got a shape over here. That's really nice. I can change it. I could change the color. You know, I can make the fill different. I could give it a gradient fill, a color fill, all of the things that you might expect to do. But I can also take these and break them apart or make them editable. Now we've got 2 things we can do. If I break it apart, it breaks it into its component shapes. So each hexagon now is a separate part. Just undo that. But if I select the whole thing and I make it editable, what it does is it actually lets me edit the vertices of every single component of every single part. So I can really take this thing to pieces. I can break it apart. I can change the colors. I've got maps that I could break apart. Let's just have a look at let's just do a search. I don't know whether you've noticed this before, but now that there are a lot of shapes inside here, it can be difficult to find them. So let's take Africa. Right, we've got Africa here. I'm not sure whether this will work or not. I didn't try this to demo, but let's see what happens if we break this apart. This might just break Madagascar apart. Yeah. So we've got Madagascar that we can move off here. So if we only wanted Madagascar, we could have that. Unfortunately, it's not broken down into individual countries, but you may find that Europe is like this. So we can break these documents apart, these shapes apart, and then work with them individually. The next thing that we can do in Pages is, those of you who attended the EPUB course, that iBooks Author is being retired. And I've got a document here that I created in iBooks Author, which is a tutorial on how to use a particular piece of software. It was Apple's iTunes U. I was just creating a how-to for it. But iBooks Author is being retired, so we can't use it anymore. But what if you've got a whole bunch of documents that you've already authored in iBooks Author? Well, Pages now gains support for iBooks Author. So I can right-click on this and say Open With, and you'll see Pages is one of the options that I can use to open it with. And there's my same document, editable, and it's actually told me your book's ready to edit in Pages. It might look a bit different because some of the features aren't available in Pages. I love this word, yet. So yeah, maybe it makes me hopeful that some of the features we lost in iBooks Author are coming to Pages, but that's fine. We'll click Continue. Asks me to save the document as another name, and here's my document that I can carry on and edit, and now I can export it as an EPUB once I've finished. So all the work that I've done historically isn't lost. And if I use any of the widgets that iBook Author supported, they're saved as different file types into a folder which are named appropriately, which I can then convert to movies. I know Bernard was asking questions about Keynote files. They're saved off into a separate folder, which I can then open and convert into a movie or whatever I want to change it to use inside Pages. Okay, so that's Pages. I have a presentation over here, and historically, if I wanted to play this back, it would take over the entire screen. It would take it from edge to edge to corner. If I had two screens, I'd have my presenter's notes on one, but it would take over my primary screen, irrespective of if I had one monitor or two monitors, or even three for that matter. One of the features that they've introduced, particularly since a lot of people are giving presentations online, is the ability to play a slideshow in a window. Now, this wasn't available before. So if I take this file and I choose play slideshow in a window, instead of taking over the entire screen, it plays this in a window. And I can resize this window to whatever size is appropriate to me. I can have other stuff on the side. I can talk through my presentation. I can leave space on the side for the gallery view so other people can interact with each other. So that's quite a useful little functionality. One of my favorite things, though, is that historically, if I took a video, I've got a video over here that I'm going to play in a bit. If I took a video and put it on slide 1, and then I copied it and put it on slide 2, when I went from slide 2, oh, sorry, if it was on slide 2, went to slide 3, when I clicked go to the next slide, the video would start playing again. What they've added now is the video will play through and continue playing through from slide to slide to slide, which allows you to annotate the video or have bullet points or to have captions or to have banner text, which will change as you click through, but the video will continue playing. So let's kill two birds with one stone over here. I'm going to play this in a new window and you'll see how this works. So here's my presentation. I'm going to click to my next slide. I'm going to click to get the video to play.
Dis wetenskaplik bewys dat brandewyn mens goeie idees gee. Ek meen, ek het net vanmôre hier aan gedink. Welkom by Buffelsfontein.
So I can paste my slide anyway. I'm not tied to particular timings. my video just plays. If I want to speed things up and go to the next slide, the video will play just the way I planned it. We can also insert web videos, and I can add captions and titles just like I did before. I'm clicking this video over here, and if I go to format, you'll see title and caption. It adds into them in the appropriate style of the appropriate template that I'm using. Now, a new feature is aligning your animation to a path. Now, aligning animation to a path has been here for a while, but what is new is the ability to control what happens to the object on the screen. So let's resize this, and demonstration is always better than talking about it. So let's just call this life cycle. So now I've got an object that I want to bring into my presentation, and I want to talk about the life cycle of a product, let's say, or life cycle of a tadpole or a frog or whatever. Now, one of the actions that I can perform with Keynote is the ability to animate on a path. So if I go to my animation and choose action and add an effect, I click move, and it gives me my starting point, my end point, but I want this to be a complete circle. So I'm going to drag this guy down to the bottom, first off, just to get my semicircle. And over here, I've got the midpoint. So I'm just going to take this off to get my half circle. And now I'm going to drag this all the way around. So it's sitting on top of it. And I now have a path that is, to all intents and purposes, a circle. It's a little smaller than a circle, but it's okay. So now, historically, when I went to play this, this is what would happen. Let's just give it a few more seconds so that it goes a bit slowly. Let's hit preview. You see what happens? The logo turns upside down. So it follows the path faithfully, but it goes upside down. New feature now is if we take off the align to path and we preview, is the object keeps its orientation and moves it across. And I can break this up into several steps. I can, if I'm trying to make a clever presentation where I'm moving to the minutes of the hour, the cycles of a series of stages of objects that are, or an activity that I'm trying to demonstrate, this object will move from point to point to point to point and give me a very nice animation, which will allow me to make my presentations look really cool. Let's go to numbers, and then if I've got time, I'll switch back to the iPad. In numbers, once again, we have exactly the same thing that we had before. We can insert a web video, same thing, same URL. So if we've got explanations or things that we want to give inside a spreadsheet or references to other people's information, bang, straight inside there. The big thing is, one of the reasons why we would often say to people, look, maybe Excel's a better product for you, is that numbers used to support something around 65,000 rows. Now, I've never made a spreadsheet larger than 65,000 rows. I've never made a spreadsheet coming anywhere close to 65,000 rows, but I know there are people who do. The new version of numbers supports 1 million rows vertically and 1,000 columns. So if you have data sets that are that large, numbers will work for you. They've also added a couple of new functions. Some of you may have come to our numbers presentation where we showed how you could look up information in one column and aggregate it into another column using the sum if function. They've added something called XLOOKUP and XMatch, which makes it much easier to extract information from large tables, and something called regex or regular expressions, which will allow you to take very complex text fields or text blocks and very, very accurately extract bits of information. Like we've got 20,000 rows of people with email addresses and their first names and last names. You can very successfully go through and extract every email address and put them into a new column if you understand regular expressions. I don't. It's beyond my pay grade. So those are the Mac versions. I'd like to switch to the iPad for a moment, because some of the features inside the iPad version are really nice, and they're specific to the iPad version. So let me just connect my iPad to my MacBook. Right, so let's start with numbers. So again, those of you who are with us on Tuesday will probably recognize this document. It's the just a dummy document on produce. And I was demonstrating with Scribble how you could use this to fill in. Now, I just want to expand a little bit more about it. So with the new version of Numbers, with the latest update, if I go to the form, sorry, for those of you who weren't there in the first place, let's just tap down here. One of the things that you can do if you weren't here for Tuesday's session, is if you have a spreadsheet like this, it's nice to have, but it can be a little bit fiddly filling it in. You know, you have to tap on something, you have to open up the keyboard, you get your numeric keypad. Okay, that's quite nice, it's quite easy to do, but if you're using a pen, it becomes very simple to fill in, but it's still a few steps and it's still a bit fiddly. One of the things that you can do is you can make a form. So just as every spreadsheet has a series of columns and each column has a series of rows, here we've got January, February, March, we can make a form that will only show us one row at a time, which makes it very, very easy to fill this in. Now, the difference that they've made with the latest version is the only way you could edit this form or make any changes to this form was to go back to your original spreadsheet and then maybe add a new column. Right? And if I just put here a new column and then went back to my form, you'd see down at the bottom, new column. Right? If I click on it, you'll see, oh, now column, can't even type. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to select this column and I'm going to delete this column, because one of the things we can do now is if I go into here, I've got a little gear, and this gear will allow me to rearrange my columns. It will allow me to add a field. So if I add a field now, and I'll call this one new, paying attention to my typing, new column, I can choose what type of field it is, whether it's a currency field, whether it's a tick box. Let's make this one a tick box. And if I go back to my overview, you can see I have a new column with checkboxes inside here. So I don't have to keep coming back to my original document and work in a fiddly environment. The other thing I can do is, if I wanted to make a form before, I had to have a table pre-prepared. So this table that you can see over here, the annual project purchase, if I tapped a plus and chose new form, you can see the tables here, annual produce purchases. If I had a number of other tables inside there, I could have selected them, but now I can just make a blank form. And if you have a look at the tab bar at the top, it's created the form and it's also made a spreadsheet with the form data. Right. So if I go to form and I just amend this text to here, and let's call this first one dates, the second one product, and the third one cost. And let's just add a fourth one over here and let's call this totals. If I go to my form data, you'll see that the names have changed to date, product, and cost. So if I'm designing short, simple forms that I want people to fill in rather than having to go into, you know, the complexity of a spreadsheet, now it's all one line at a time. If I tap done, you see over there in form data, we've got 3 rows, 1, 2, 3. If I go to my form, I'm on one of 3. I'll say 10th October. 10 October, product, dogs, cost, $1.99. It's probably going to fail there. We'll leave that for the moment. Go to my form data, and it's all filled in as well. So I can design these forms over here really easily. So that's the new features in Numbers on the iPad. And the final thing that I want to show you is Keynote on the iPad. I have a presentation over here. And if I'm editing it, I can go in here, I can type, I can bring up my keyboard, I can add shapes, all the good stuff that we can normally do. Previously, if I wanted to rearrange this or edit this, I had 2 modes. I had the navigator view where you've got your slides down on the side, and I had the slide sorter, which is a light table where I could go in here and I could just select something and rearrange it, move it around. So we're in light table over here, and I could select something here and I could duplicate my slides. I could rearrange them. We now have a new view, which is going back to the early days of presentation packages, where I can choose outline. And what this does is it gives me all the text from my slides without the distraction of the images. If I select a slide, it will jump me to that particular part of the presentation and highlight it. So I can now go and edit my text and think about what I'm doing without distractions. I can select these fields and I can move them around. So it really is a good outliner. So if you are creating your presentations on the iPad, you now have the granularity of the outliner, where you can work not necessarily just in graphic mode, but you can actually have quite a lot of control over the way you manage your text. Finally, if you look at the bottom, you've got your indents and outdents. So I can tab my way in, I can push something in, and obviously that will change the look and feel on the actual slide itself, depending on what bullet points you've selected. So those are all the new features of iWork that I've come across so far. I've come in at exactly 30 minutes. So I'm going to stop screen sharing. Okay, guys, have a lovely afternoon.
Thanks so much.
And we look forward to seeing you next week.
Yep. Ciao, everybody.
Bye now.
Yes. Bye.
Bye-bye.